everybody, Tyron got 3 here. Pokemon Universe. Doesn't sound the same as Pokemon Crystal. But anyway, Pokemon Universe, episode 26. This episode is titled Big Mouth Tyrant, the Fossil Graveyard. This episode follows Kaz instead of Trent, Luna, and Coda. We're not following our heroes this episode. We're actually following Trent's rival, Kaz. I like doing these because I feel like the rival needs some episodes. If you're going to have him be a rival, then we need to actually care about the rival. So what better way to do that than to give them episodes to show their progression through the journey so that when they do fight, the development is justified. They're not just stronger than the main character for no reason or weaker than no reason. So yeah, this episode. Kaz wanders by a wasteland area known as the Fossil Graveyard, and he notices a lot of commotion. There's just a lot of people around. It's just very bustling. And he ends up running into an archaeologist. This archaeologist's name is Nathaniel, and he's accompanied by a scientist, Dr. Farrowith. They are excavating, and they're excavating for Pokemon fossils. They've been excavating all day trying to look for Pokemon fossils, and Dr. Farrowith is trying to use his rejuvenation machine. It takes the DNA of long extinct Pokemon from millions of years ago and, rejuvenates them. So, when that happens, Kaz doesn't think much of it. He feels like it's just sort of there, and he's focused on, continuing his journey. But he does end up tripping. He ends up tripping over what he thought was a rock. And instead, it was a fossil, the very thing that they've been excavating for all day. He ends up finding a fossil known as the Big Jaw fossil. Now, obviously, if you played the game, you know what the Big Jaw fossil does. But when he finds this, Nathaniel and Professor Farrowith, or Dr. Farrowith, are absolutely ecstatic. They're happy to see that they actually found a fossil after looking so long. They found another fossil similar to the Big Jaw fossil. It's a Big Jaw fossil as well, only it's way bigger. It's like 10 times bigger than the one Kaz found. Kaz found a small one. The Big Jaw fossil that the other scientists found was a huge one. And they bring them into the tent, and Kaz is sort of just along for the ride because he's curious about what he exactly just tripped over. Big Jaw fossil is shown to be on the rejuvenation machine, and it's going to be rejuvenated. And Nathaniel, I know that I encourage imagination on this. His voice, it's like not voice, but I want to say like his speech, the way I've written his speech, it's kind of like a British excavator or like a British, like tally ho, like cheerio, my boy, dear chap, young. It's basically that. And I had him talk like that. So that's how I wrote his dialogue. So if you see weirdness in his dialogue when these come out physically, then that's what's going on. He speaks in that sort of old style accent. Anyway, they use the rejuvenation machine on the small fossil because they know it'll take less time in order to rejuvenate into a Pokemon so that they can start running tests on it. They're going to use the rejuvenation machine on the big fossil after, like immediately after. So when they use the rejuvenation machine, it ends up showing to be a Tyrant, the Pokemon Tyrant, the extinct Pokemon Tyrant, the Jaw Pokemon. And when it emerges, the first thing it sees is Kaz. And it's happy to see Kaz. And instead of, greeting like a normal Pokemon, it bites Kaz's hand. Like it just takes a huge chomp onto Kaz's hand. And Kaz flips out and is trying to get it off of him. It's a fun little joke I decided would be cute and throw into it. Why not? So we end up running into that form of hilarity. And when that happens, we see in the background there are 2 shady characters here. And these shady characters have their eye on not just the Big Jaw fossil, but the rejuvenation machine, because they feel like it will be useful towards future plans that they have. This is Team Nebula. Obviously, Team Nebula has made appearances before. They made an appearance, I want to say, in episode 12 of Pokemon Universe. So they are reoccurring. And they want to use this rejuvenation machine to their fullest advantage. And the way to do that, they need to get everybody cleared out of that excavation tent so that they can go ahead and take the machine and take the Pokemon. When they arrive, they take some outfits and go into disguise as scientists. The Nebula grunts, as disguised as scientists, also are known as Silva and Kane. And Silva and Kane, basically in disguise, tell Dr. Farowitz and Nathaniel and Kaz that they need help, that some scientists need help in order to excavate this new fossil that they found. They say that there's a fossil that just got discovered, and the rest of the archaeologists need help in order to uncover that fossil. So Nathaniel, Farowitz, and Kaz go out in order to help. The Kane and Silva, their plan is successful. Get them out of the tent so that they can go ahead and steal the rejuvenation machine, steal Tyrant, and steal the big jaw fossil that hasn't been rejuvenated yet. They started the process, like the rejuvenation machine is starting to rejuvenate the fossil, but it's going to take way longer because it's way bigger than the one that rejuvenated Tyrant. So while they go to do that, the archaeologists are confused as to why Nathaniel, Farowitz, and Kaz came out in order to assist. They stated that they haven't found a fossil all day since they found that giant big jaw fossil. They're still excavating. So then they're confused as to why the order was made for them to help. They said that some scientists would need help, and then that was incorrect because the archaeologists state that the scientists have been on lunch break for about 30 minutes now. And then when they asked how many lab coats were back there, they stated that there's only 4 lab coats, including the one Dr. Farowitz is using. So it was a lie. That means the other scientists that are in there are posers. Kaz quickly picks onto this. He's the one that knows that obviously they've been bamboozled. So Kaz decides to run back and, investigate. Nathaniel and Farowitz follow Kaz, but they don't want to do anything drastic. They actually want to call Officer Jenny. Kaz states that would take far too long and they'll end up getting away by that time, so he's going to take it upon himself to try to fight off against the posers. When Kaz sees that they are out at watch at the tent, Kane is the one basically guarding the tent, while Silva is the one, going in and trying to make sure she steals the rejuvenation machine. She's getting everything ready so that the rejuvenation machine can get taken. When Kaz ends up choosing Firo, he ends up having Firo come out as well as Combuskin in order to fight off against Kane. Kane ends up using Siglif, the Pokemon Siglif, and it ends up fighting off against Combuskin and Pharaoh. Now, Kaz had the advantage at first and the element of surprise. Unfortunately, Silva comes out and uses Victory Bell, and the two end up working together. And since there's 2 of them and 1 of Kaz, it's hard for him to to give commands to his Pokemon and fight both of them, while they both have the luxury of having 1 Pokemon each and giving commands to that Pokemon respectively. So they basically just outnumber Kaz, which is why he's at a huge disadvantage here. So as the battle continues though, Combuskin ends up using Focus Energy and then combines that with Slash in order to get some good hits off on Victory Bell. Unfortunately, while this battle is taking place, Nathaniel and Farowitz show up because they called the Officer Jenny, but then they ended up following Kaz right after because they respect Kaz's courage and they want to see if he's okay. While this battle's taking place, the rejuvenation machine finally finishes rejuvenating that giant Big Jaw fossil. And obviously you all probably know where this is going. Instead of Tyrant, this one is Tyrantrum. And more specifically, the mother of the Tyrant that was found earlier in the episode. Tyrantrum comes out of the tent and destroys pretty much everything. It's causing a huge rampage, and Team Nebula even goes in to decide to call in for backup. And when they do, backup arrives, and they try to fight off against Tyrantrum. Tyrantrum destroys pretty much everything, even the rejuvenation machine, which sets Dr. Farowitz and Nathaniel back a little bit because they really wanted that rejuvenation machine to stay, but it's whatever. Tyrantrum destroys the entire area. Team Nebula tries to fight off against Tyrantrum, but it's way too powerful. And then Kane suggests that they retreat. Silva doesn't want to retreat, but they know that the rejuvenation machine is destroyed and Tyrantrum is way too strong. And they're upset that they lost the Pokemon Tyrant, because Tyrant was actually netted up. Like, it was caged up, but thanks to Kaz using Firo in order to lift up the tent and free Tyrant using Combuskin Slash and Focus Energy, Tyrant is free from the cage, and the Tyrant thanks Kaz by biting its hand. So after that, they retreat and they leave before the Officer Jenny show up in order to arrest him. So they leave, and Silva at least takes the schematics for the rejuvenation machine. The reason she does this is because she believes, hey, even though we couldn't steal the rejuvenation machine, we can at least get the schematics so we can build our own. So they retreat, but they make sure not to retreat empty-handed. While that's all taken care of, though, we are left with Tyrantrum causing a huge outrage on the entire area. He's just, stomping about, causing mischief. And they need to bring it down. They gotta find some way to calm it down. And since Tyrantrum's the mother, it really wants to see if Tyrant's okay. Also, it hasn't eaten in a while. Nathaniel suggests to use some Chekhov berries. Chekhov berries are just these really old berries that used to exist back then. So ancient Pokemon are used to eating those because they existed back when they were alive. But it's not going to work because they can't get in close enough because this thing is causing a rampage throughout the entire area. So they don't know what to do, and they're like, oh, well, we can just bring Tyrant to Tyrantrum, and then it'll calm down once it sees that its child is okay. But that's not going to work because Tyrant is too close to the others, so Tyrantrum will believe that the others are trying to harm the Tyrant and will defend it and try to eat them too. So, out of options, Kaz doesn't know what to do, and Nathaniel basically states that, when all else fails, if you do what you're good at, then that should help. And Kaz takes his advice and decides to battle it. He uses what he knows best, Pokemon battling. So he decides to battle it. He has Combuskin, Pharaoh, and then he chooses Electabuzz to come out as well. And he tries to fight off Tyrantrum. Tyrantrum knows some powerful attacks. He knows Dragon Tail, Dragon Claw, Rock Slide, just very powerful. And it knows Earthquake, so just very powerful attacks. When he uses Earthquake, he has Electabuzz get lifted by Pharaoh, so that Pharaoh's carrying Electabuzz in the air. Combuskin ends up learning a new attack, but in order to use the attack, they just need some time because Kaz wants his attack to be as effective as possible so that he can knock out the Tyrantrum. Once Tyrantrum's knocked out, once it wakes back up, it should be able to calm down a little bit. So the plan is to get in close. It's hard to get in close though because Pharaoh is maneuvering Electabuzz around the rock slides, and then Electabuzz ends up going in with the Thunder Punch. It's blocked, however, by Tyrantrum's Dragon Claw attack. Once it's blocked, they do get in close enough, and Kaz tells Electabuzz to use Thunder Wave. This paralyzes Tyrantrum, and once it's paralyzed, Combuskin uses Focus Energy in order to raise, the power. And now that it's paralyzed, it's wide open, and Kaz tells Combuskin to use Sky Uppercut. The Sky Uppercut makes a direct hit, Tyrantrum falls down and is knocked out. When Tyrantrum wakes back up, Tyrant is introduced to it first, just to let it know that it's okay. Tyrantrum calms down, and because the rejuvenation machine is destroyed, Dr. Fairwhip did want to run some tests on Tyrantrum and Tyrant, but Nathaniel just tells him to go ahead and let them just live life. Just stay in the fossil graveyard and just live off the land and, be happy. Because of all of this, though, Kaz feels like his work here is done. He's gonna go ahead and head off. They do thank Kaz for his efforts and his battling skills and helping fix them in this situation. And they thank him for the endeavors that he went through in helping them through the whole critical situation. Tyrant ends up running back to Kaz and bites Kaz's hand. And every time Kaz tries to leave, Tyrant keeps following. So it appears that Tyrant wants to travel with Kaz throughout his Pokemon journey. Kaz was reluctant about this at first, but he saw how strong Tyrantrum was, and if Tyrant can get that strong too, then it would actually be a really good asset towards the team. So he actually decides to bring Tyrant along. Tyrantrum is pretty much cool with this as well too. So they say their goodbyes, and Nathaniel and Dr. Fairwhip wish Kaz good luck along with Tyrant. And Nathaniel also gives Kaz a couple of Chekhov berries so that he can feed Tyrant, because those are the berries that Tyrant would eat. So with that said, Kaz and Tyrant walk off, and Kaz has a new Pokemon added to his team, and the episode is over. I really wanted to, give Kaz a well-deserved development episode, have him involved in a plot. I also wanted to involve Pokemon fossils in some way, shape, or form. I don't know, it's always weird with me and extinct Pokemon, because I know they exist, but I also forget that they're extinct Pokemon. So I'm like, oh yeah, they gotta be in the plot somehow, but how? And I just wanted to play around with the fossil aspect a little bit. So I decided to go ahead and I was like, why not? Let's go ahead and utilize these ancient Pokemon. And Tyron and Tyrantrum are one of my favorites. So I felt like this was a great chance to utilize that. Have some more scientists involved to fit with the Zeon City science theme, since Kaz already beat the gym leader, or at least he already went ahead. So it wouldn't be that far-fetched to say that scientists are nearby. So it makes the world feel a little bit more comfortable, and there's archaeologists there too. I knew there was going to be a Kaz episode, and I had writer's block on this episode for the longest time because I was like, I want a Kaz episode, I just don't know what the Kaz episode's going to be about. And I stopped and thought about it for a really long time, and I'm like, what is a Kaz episode going to revolve around? Because Kaz episodes are hard to write, because you got to deviate away from our heroes for a second and make this episode. So you got to really stop and think to yourself, well, where's the plot going to go? So yeah, it's a weird way to come at things, but once the ideas started turning in my head, I finally got a perspective of what I was going to do. But thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, anything that about the episode you liked, didn't like, agreed with, didn't agree with, felt like needed work. I had fun writing this episode, and I felt very satisfied when the episode was over, just to give, again, Kaz this well-needed use of development. Also, this means he has a new Pokemon on his team, because I know he has Fearow. He had Fearow. He also has Horsey on this team still, too, and he uses Horsey briefly in the fight with Tyrantrum as well, just to, add more damage, because it's part rock. But yeah, he has Horsey, Fearow, Electabuzz, and Combuskin, and now he has Tyrunt on his team, so he has a team of 5 Pokemon now, and I just thought it'd be a really good way to add on to, his team, is to give him a really cool, potential, strong Pokemon that also has the running gag of biting his hand, which is pretty fun. But with that said, that will lead on to the next episode, which is episode 27. That episode is titled Tag Team Troubles, Clauncher versus Houndour. And with that said, I will see you all then, everybody. Thank you so much if you're supporting this. If you're new to this, I would go back and watch, obviously, episode 1 and continue onwards. Sorry for the low quality. I may end up re-recording episodes 1 through 20, maybe in the future, now that I've got better tech and I've got better resources. But with that said, I'll see you all then, everybody. Tyrone the God 3, out.